Before clocks existed, humans had already built machines that told time with uncanny precision. And they didn't need electricity, batteries, or anything we'd call technology. The oldest sundial we know of sits in a museum now, but once it stood in the heat of ancient Egypt, casting a shadow that meant something to someone waiting for noon. Around 1500 BCE, the Egyptians carved obelisks and simple shadow sticks into the ground, watching how the sun's position changed throughout the day. They weren't thinking about precision the way we do. They were thinking about prayer, about work, about knowing when to rest. What they didn't know yet was that their simple observations would become the foundation for something far more intricate. The real genius wouldn't arrive for another 1,000 years. By then, the world had moved on, empires had risen and fallen, and a new question had emerged. How do you measure time with something so constant, so reliable, that it never lies? The Greeks figured it out. Around the 4th century BCE, they began building gnomons. That's the technical name for the rod or edge that casts the shadow. But more importantly, they started dividing the day into hours, and they started thinking mathematically about where those shadows would fall. A mathematician named Eratosthenes used a sundial to measure the circumference of the Earth itself. By the time Rome conquered much of the known world, sundials had become common. They were status symbols, almost signs that you were civilized enough to care about the precise division of daylight. Rich Romans had them in their gardens, carved from marble, decorated with bronze. Poorer people looked at the sun itself and made do with what they could see for free. And then came a long, quiet period where the knowledge almost disappeared. When the Roman Empire fell, so did much of the technical sophistication around timekeeping. For centuries, Europe relied on church bells and the seasons. The intricate mathematics of sundials faded from common memory. But in the Islamic world, the knowledge never left. Scholars in Baghdad, Cairo, and Damascus continued the work. They built elaborate water clocks and perfected the mathematics of mnemonics. They created sundials so precise that they could track the prayer times throughout the year, something that mattered deeply to their faith and their daily rhythm. What they didn't realize, working in those libraries and observatories, was that their precision was about to become less important. The mechanical clock was coming. By the 13th century, Europe had rediscovered and improved upon clockwork technology. Suddenly, you didn't need the sun anymore. You could carry time with you. Yet sundials didn't disappear. They persisted alongside clocks, almost stubbornly, well into the modern era. People still carved them onto church walls and garden stones. There was something satisfying about a timepiece that needed no winding, no maintenance, no human intervention beyond watching it work. The Renaissance brought a flowering of sundial design. Artists and mathematicians competed to create the most beautiful, most accurate versions. They added decorative elements, mythological figures, Latin inscriptions. A sundial became not just a tool but a statement, a marriage of art and science. One particular dial, built in the 17th century in a European garden, still stands today. Its maker's name is lost to time, but the dial remains accurate within minutes. It has survived wars, weather, and the complete transformation of how humans measure time around it. The sun still falls on its numbers the same way it did 400 years ago. What made a sundial work was elegantly simple: the angle of the Earth's axis. The gnomon had to be tilted to match your latitude. The hour lines had to be drawn at exact angles based on mathematics that took centuries to perfect. Once you got those two things right, the sun would do the rest forever. There's a kind of poetry in that. A machine that requires no energy except sunlight, no repair except occasionally cleaning away moss and dust, no replacement except perhaps once every few centuries. It works the same way in summer as in winter, the same way in 1600 as it does today. The 18th and 19th centuries were the golden age of sundials, even as mechanical clocks grew more reliable and affordable. Wealthy homes had them. Public squares had them. There was something deeply human about wanting to see time marked in such a direct, visible way, not hidden inside a mechanism, but written plainly by light and shadow. By the 20th century, sundials had become something else entirely. They were no longer practical timekeeping devices. You had wristwatches for that, and eventually phones. Instead, they became reminders. Mementos, pieces of garden art that whispered about the passage of time in a language older than words. Many of them have inscriptions carved around their edges. Latin phrases mostly, things like "I count only the sunny hours" or "time passes" never returns. They're gentle reminders, not harsh, not urgent, just present, acknowledging something we all feel but rarely articulate. Today, sundials have almost entirely vanished from daily life. We don't need them. Our phones tell us the time to the second, and we carry them everywhere. And yet, if you walk through older neighborhoods or historical gardens, you'll still find them, waiting for the sun, still working, still patient. There's a particular kind of peace in watching a sundial work. It requires nothing from you except to look, to notice, to stand still for a moment and feel the sun on your skin while its shadow marks the hours. In a world obsessed with speed and precision and constant connectivity, the sundial offers something almost rebellious: slowness. And perhaps that's why we keep them around. Not because they tell time better than anything else, they don't, but because they tell time in a way that feels honest, connected to something real. The sun rises, the shadow moves, the hours pass. Nothing is hidden, nothing is complicated. Just light and time, speaking to each other in a language as old as civilization itself. Subscribe for more forgotten stories of human ingenuity, where the gentlest inventions often outlast the loudest ones.